the Sena50S and the Cardo Packtalk Bold. These are the two newest and best motorcycle Bluetooth intercom headsets on the market today. So let's talk for a minute about common features between both units. They both have separate mesh and Bluetooth intercom functions. The mesh intercom is more useful for bike-to-bike communication, where the Bluetooth intercom can be used for rider-to-passenger communication or communication to older Bluetooth intercom units. They both have support for iPhone's Siri and Android's Google function. This allows you to pull up your voice assistants while riding if you are directly paired to your cell phone. They both have music sharing capabilities that allows two paired units to share music between them. They both can be recharged while riding. They both have very good battery life. In use, they should last a full day. Of course, it will depend on how you're using them. If you are using the mesh intercom modes, it will use more battery life on both of them. They both have voice-activated commands that allow you to use your voice to operate some of the functions on them, so you don't have to fumble with pushing buttons. They both have upgraded speakers. The Sena has what they call a HD speaker, while the Cardo Packtalk Bold uses a JBL speaker. Both units have a phone app you can load to allow you to Bluetooth connect to your phone to adjust the different settings and options. They also both come with a software program you can download on your PC to be able to connect them to your computer via USB cord and update the firmware and make settings and adjustments through your computer. And they both will work with the OEM Honda CB on the new generation Honda Goldwing motorcycle. Cardo Packtalk Bold or Sena50S. Which one of these is really the better unit? Well, hold that thought for just 1 minute. Because the mesh intercom systems between Cardo and Sena are not compatible with each other. And this may influence your purchase choice more than anything else. If you want to use these for bike-to-bike communication, then you may be forced to get whatever brand your riding buddies already have. Both Cardo and Sena do offer a way to Bluetooth connect one of their units to another brand into a mesh intercom session. Cardo calls this the Bluetooth bridge and Sena calls it universal pairing. The problem with this is it relies on the older Bluetooth technology for pairing to the other non-brand device, and this can be clunky and problematic and brings along with it all the pairing problems with Bluetooth from the past. So really the best way to use these, if you're going to use them for bike-to-bike communication, is to use the mesh intercom systems on them. And the only way to keep the mesh intercoms compatible with each other is to stay within one brand in your riding group. So looking at the two units side by side, you can see they're somewhat similar in size. The biggest difference is Sena uses a jog dial wheel for volume control and other functions. You can also push in on the center of that wheel, where Cardo uses a thumb controlled wheel, which appears to be a little more waterproof. You can also push in on that thumb wheel just like you can a mouse button. There are little raised indentations in the Cardo for 3 buttons on the face of it. Sena uses a button at the rear and a button that's sort of obstructed or hidden behind the antenna, and that's for the mesh intercom system. So if I power these units on, I'll start by powering on the Sena. I push the button at the rear and hit the jog dial wheel. You'll notice it announces when it's on. You'll also notice the blue light is flashing in, indicating it's in the Bluetooth intercom mode. Now if I do the same thing to turn on the Cardo, I hold down this button and this button at the same time briefly.
Hello, Paktalk Bluetooth intercom mode.
And it announces as well what mode it's in. And the light flashes blue for the Bluetooth intercom mode. To change it to the mesh intercom mode, you push both of these buttons at the same time.
DMC intercom mode.
And you notice the light changes to green. To do the same thing on the Sena, to change it to the DMC intercom mode, you push on this button that's sort of hidden behind the antenna.
Mesh intercom on.
Okay.
Open mesh. Channel 1.
And it's in open mesh channel 1 right away. And the light changes to green to indicate it's in the mesh mode. So both Cardo and Sena even use the same light indicator colors to indicate when they're in mesh and Bluetooth modes, which I find rather interesting. Sena has an interesting feature. If you hold down on the button here for about a second and a half or 2 seconds, it will actually mute the microphone in the mesh mode.
Mic off.
And it announces the microphone is turned off. You hold it again,
Mic on.
and the microphone is turned back on. That's a very useful feature if you're using these in a group, bike to bike, and somebody's microphone is constantly transmitting wind noise, or they're coughing or whatever. They can reach up and turn their microphone off. My only complaint would be that button's a little bit hard to reach with the antenna down. You have to kind of reach behind the antenna and feel to find it. The Cardo does not have at this time any microphone mute feature, so that's an advantage for the Sena. They both seem to operate similarly, right down to the voice they use for their commands. It almost sounds like the same woman.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
So it even sounds like the same girl speaking to you. So there's a look at the two units side by side, and now let's do a little comparison of the features and functions on them. So let's start by talking about the things that the Cardo Packtalk Bold does better than the Sena50S. For starters, the Packtalk Bold has much better wind noise filtration circuits built into it. The Cardo, when it senses wind noise, after a few seconds it will realize that it's wind noise, and it will mute the microphones and block out the wind noise. The Sena does not appear capable of doing this, and as a result, much more wind noise comes through in both intercom modes, which can interrupt your music going down the road. So, big winner on Cardo for the wind noise filtration circuits. The Cardo is also waterproof, where the Sena is only water resistant. If we take a look at the connectors on the back of the Cardo unit and on its cradle, you'll see that the connectors are much more robust. They're designed so the connector actually fits inside the housing of the Cardo unit, thus protecting it from water. So when this is snapped into place, that connector is protected from water intrusion. So it's a better design. The roller wheel instead of the jog dial appears to be more waterproof. The buttons are completely covered, so there's no way any water can get into the unit. So overall, if you're looking for a waterproof unit, this one is the one to get. The voice recognition features on the Cardo Packtalk Bold work much better than they do on the Sena50S. This means you don't have to fumble with buttons or try to remember button operations and push sequences to activate different modes of the unit. The Sena's voice recognition system was problematic, and I would say it only worked about 50 to 60% of the time properly. My experience is that the new JBL speakers provided with the Packtalk Bold are just slightly better than the Sena HD speakers. So I would give a point to the Cardo for audio quality of the JBL speakers. They're just a little bit better than what the Sena gives you. So let's take a look at the advantages the Sena50S provides over the Cardo Packtalk Bold. First and foremost, I'm going to say the Bluetooth 5.0 is a big improvement in this model. The Cardo Packtalk Bold is still based on Bluetooth 4.1 technology. The Sena50S with its Bluetooth 5.0 provides longer range, clearer and more stable Bluetooth connections, and just overall better connectivity. This is probably the single biggest advantage that the Sena has over the Cardo at this point in time. The Sena has a microphone mute function when in the mesh intercom mode that Cardo does not have, though admittedly the button can be a little hard to reach if the antenna is in the down position. Being able to mute your microphone is a huge advantage, especially if you're riding with a large group of riders and someone has an open microphone constantly. The open mesh system on the Sena requires no pairing and makes these units extremely easy to use in the mesh mode. You simply turn your Sena on and put it in the mesh intercom mode, and it will pair with any other Senas that are nearby in the open mesh mode. This makes life a lot easier with a group of riders. You don't have to mess around trying to get things paired up. The Bluetooth intercom on the Sena works better when you're trying to use it along with music. Personally, I like to use the Bluetooth intercom for rider to passenger intercom because I can reach up and with the push of one button, I can turn the intercom functions on and off on both headsets simultaneously. This not only allows me to solve the problem of wind noise coming from a passenger's mic because I can just turn the system off, it also saves battery power on the unit. So we are able to enable the intercom when we need to speak, and when we're done speaking, we can turn the intercom system off. This way our music is not constantly interrupted with wind noise. The Bluetooth intercom on the Cardo does not work as well when trying to listen to music at the same time, so it does not perform the audio multitasking function nearly as well or flawlessly as the Sena does. Sena provides a side tone option. If you go into the phone app or you go into the computer settings on your PC, you are able to enable or disable a side tone option. This allows you to hear your own voice when you speak, which gives you some feedback that your unit is actually working and you're actually transmitting properly. The Cardo does not provide any side tone, so you do not get any feedback of your voice when you're speaking. The Sena50S also has a slightly faster recharge time than the Cardo does. The Sena50S also provides a better and faster connection to the Honda Goldwing. This is important if you're using CarPlay on the new generation Honda Goldwing. The CarPlay function will not work until the headset has first paired with the motorcycle. I found that when I was using the Cardo, the headset would pair properly with the bike only about 60 to 70% of the time, enabling CarPlay to work. Other times I'd have to wait for the Cardo to pair and then plug in my phone to get CarPlay started. With the Sena50S, I did not have any of those problems. It paired up quickly every single time I turned on the bike, and it paired up quick enough that I did not have to unplug my phone and plug my phone back in to get CarPlay to work. So this could be a consideration for the new generation Honda Goldwing riders. The Sena seems to do a better job connecting with the Goldwing motorcycle. I'll also say that once connected to the motorcycle, with the Sena, I could walk almost a full football field away from the motorcycle and remain connected to the motorcycle via the Bluetooth connection. With the Cardo, if I took more than about 3 steps away from the bike, the system would disconnect and the Bluetooth connection to the motorcycle would break. And I suspect that's a lot to do with the Bluetooth 5.0, the better range that the Bluetooth 5.0 has on the Sena. So this was a little bit of a tough comparison for me to make. I really fully expected the Cardo to win this competition. Having previously owned a Sena 30K that had a lot of bugs, I wasn't real hopeful of the Sena50S. However, I have to say that the Sena50S has greatly surprised me. The advantages of Bluetooth 5.0, the microphone mute function, the better operation of the Bluetooth intercom, and the better connection it makes with the Honda Goldwing, in my mind, make the Sena50S the clear winner. You can rest assured that Cardo is working on a Bluetooth 5.0 system, and I would suspect that when this happens, it will level the playing field. I would also love to see Sena make a waterproof unit. This is one of the big downfalls of the Sena. I would also like to see either manufacturer come out with a unit that could universally talk over the mesh intercom system with any other brand. If the mesh intercom system could be made as standard, or either of these manufacturers could come up with one that would work with the other manufacturer's mesh, they would have a big leg up over the competition. But for now, if you want to use mesh, Sena can only talk to Sena and Cardo can only talk to Cardo, and that's unfortunate. Something else I'd like to bring up in using motorcycle intercoms in a group. In a bike-to-bike setting, if you're riding with 3 or 4 other riders, typically most of them will be using their intercom system not only to be able to communicate with each other, but to be able to listen to music at the same time. One of the big annoyances when you're riding with several people is when someone wants to be very chatty and talk all the time during the ride. Motorcycle communication should be treated like an airplane. You should only communicate with other riders the basic elements that you need to keep the ride safe and to reach your destination. Things like, I'm running out of gas, or let's stop and eat, or you missed your turn. Those are the kinds of communications that are vital to be able to express to each other to be able to keep the ride organized and going along smoothly. When someone wants to talk about what they had to eat last night for dinner in a 5-minute long conversation, it means that the rest of the group has to sit there and suffer through that conversation, and they can't listen to their music. So a word of advice to riders using these communication systems in big groups. The larger the group, the more people are going to be talking. If you've got 2 or 3 riders, it won't be as much of a problem, but you get above 4 riders and you start to have an awful lot of communication going on. I would suggest that you set some ground rules before you start your ride about communication, and express to all the members of the group that communication should be kept to the bare minimum and only the essentials for the ride and nothing else. So those are my words of wisdom to you. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. A big thanks to Sena, Cardo, and Wingstuff for making this possible. And please don't forget to check out my motorcycle maintenance videos at www.angelridevideos.com.